this is a good demonstration of what the Sphinx may have originally looked like. So it's a good tool to use. So imagine the head was just an outcrop of stone, and then you fashion this body, and that looks... So in other words, you have, it might be hard for the viewers to see here, but let's say this is the bedrock. Here's the Sphinx. And they carve out the body of the Sphinx. And it would have originally looked like, can you pull up Narmer's palette? Narmer palette. Narmer's palette is what defines the Egyptian civilization.
Is that Narmer's, or are you saying Narmer's because you're from Boston?
I'm saying Narmer from Boston. It's Narmer. Narmer's palette. He parked the car in the Harvard Yard with Narmer.
N-A-R, not...
Yeah, N-A-R.
M-E-R.
M-E-R.
Yeah, first one right there. First one. Yep.
Okay.
Images.
Click on the images right there. Perfect. And then if you can just zoom in or click on the image so it's full screen. This is the front and back of the Narmer palette. And if you look to the left, you'll see an image of Narmer. Catfish chisel. That's what Narmer.
Catfish chisel.
Yeah. That's what Narmer means in ancient Egyptian language. The hieroglyphs are right up above that say catfish, symbol for catfish, and chisel. That's his name, Catfish Chisel.
Got it.
Narmer, also known to the Greeks as Menes. He's the first, not really the first, because it's a really gray area, Dynasty 0, and there were rulers before him. But Narmer is what begins Egyptian civilization as we know it for scholarship. We define ancient Egyptian civilization by a chronological timeline when starts when Narmer unified the two lands, Upper and Lower Egypt, the North and the West, brought the two lands together. That's the beginning of ancient Egyptian dynastic civilization, which then we have Dynasty 1, 2, 3, all the way up. There is some controversy and it is still disputed about Dynasty 0, and then there's rulers before. It's a very gray area. We don't have a lot of information. In fact, I just came back from Nekhen, which is a site that we were one of the first public groups to actually bring a tour group to this site. We had to get special permissions. It took me a long time to set up, and thankfully, because I have good relationships from Alexandria to Aswan and with the Ministry of Antiquities in Egypt, we were able to get access for Dr. David Miano's tour, and I was able to lead them to Nekhen. Nekhen is important because it's one of the oldest ancient Egyptian sites, and it's where they dug the Narmer palette. I literally stood on the mound that they pulled this thing out of. Few eyes ever get to see this, Julian. Most tourists that go to Egypt never see this. In fact, most Egyptians don't even know about it. I asked the local Egyptians, they're like, what and where is Nekhen?
So you're the plug.
I'm the plug. So we took the group there, and it's a significant site, and this is where they pull Narmer's palette out from, and it's not very well excavated. There's still more work to be done. And I've had discussions with Egyptologists about this. If we were to do more excavations at Nekhen, we're probably going to be able to learn more about early and pre-dynastic history. We already know a little bit about pre-dynastic history from the area, like early prototypes, we could say, of Egyptian hieroglyphs, where they would use different glyphic symbols on ivory tags, bone tags, which the language seems to slowly develop or quickly develop from that. Anyway.
Can we pull up Narmer's again? Sorry.
Yeah, so Narmer's palette. We want to take a look at Narmer's palette. It looks like a shield, but it wasn't used as a shield. It was actually used for the makeup for the eyes. There's a circle, and they would put their stuff in there, their paint. All right, so look on the left. We have Narmer. Narmer in his right hand is holding the war mace. He's grabbing the enemies by the hair. They're on their knees. Just above the enemy's head, we notice the falcon, and it's on top of what has like this elongated horizontal body and the head. I don't know if you can zoom in. Are you able to zoom in on that image? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I got to give a shout out to Matt Simpson at Ancient Architects YouTube channel. He was the first to really conceptualize a theory around this. But in any event, this is a good demonstration of what the Sphinx may have originally looked like. So it's a good tool to use. So imagine the head was just an outcrop of stone, and then you fashion this body, and that looks, proportionately, that's fine. That would have been an early rendition of what the Sphinx would have looked like. And then right at the end was this big fissure.
Oh, shit.
Yes. The light bulb has gone off with Julian.
Yeah.
So right at it where you see it truncate in the back to the far right, what looks like his butt, they wanted to extend that to make hunches to turn it into an actual Sphinx. To make it have the hunches of the rump of the Sphinx. So they had to carve over the fissure. They had to expand the Sphinx. And then from there, they added a tail, and they added legs, and then they added bricks to the front of that to make the paws of the Sphinx. And then over time, there's been different restorations and so forth. So what I'm
You say-
saying is,
and did
I'm
I-
saying, look at your original Sphinx. This is aside from the outcropping of the rock, then they fashion the face, then they make the body, and everything would have been proportionate. Everything from the Great Fissure forward is proportionate. The reason why people think it's disproportionate and use that as evidence to say, oh, it was carved down from an older head, is because they're taking into account what the Sphinx looks like today, which would have had an expanded. Now go back to the Sphinx. Put in side profile of Egyptian Sphinx.
Side profile Egyptian Sphinx. Did I mishear this 10 minutes ago? I want to make sure I'm following all this because it's kind of blowing my mind. But you were saying that they elongated it over time?
Yeah, correct.
And how long is that time?
That's another $1 million question, Julian, and that's one I'm still trying to research, and I don't know how we could figure that out because, again, Mark Lehner accounts for it, but he doesn't say how long it took.
Right.
So we don't know exactly. Again, Schock and Dobeke did seismic refraction survey. We can kind of determine dating from their interpretations with some things in the back because the levels in the back are like, 1 to 3 meters, and then it dips down. Anyway, so here's the side profile. So look at the big picture we're looking at here on the right. You see where it's like light in the back? It looks like light's reflecting. From where the light reflects back is where the Great Fissure is. Actually, can you put in, well, before we move off of this, so from that light source forward, kind of matches, and now imagine if the paws weren't there, it kind of matches that image you've seen of a horizontal body with a head.
Yeah.
That and keep in mind that Narmer palette goes back to the earliest parts of Egyptian civilization, right? And so,
but it doesn't have the thing sticking up.
It doesn't have the thing sticking out, but the Sphinx is missing something sticking out of its head, because so Google.
But the things were in the Narmer's palette.
Go back to Narmer's. Click on Narmer's palette. Let's go back to Narmer's palette.
Narmer's palette.
Yeah. Okay. So you see, well, it's sticking out of the back.
Right.
Now go
It's
back
not the
to the
head.
image of the Sphinx. And look at the image in the middle, the white background, how it has a crown. The Sphinx has a crown. Do you see second row, third image in?
Oh, yeah.
Has a crown. It likely would have had one. The Sphinx today has a giant hole in its head. It goes down about 6 feet. However, it was filled with cement in the early 20th century by Emile Barrace, an Egyptologist. So there's still images of it where you could see a man, before they filled it with cement, you can see a man standing inside of the hole in the head of the Sphinx. And we can get into the different entrances into the Sphinx in the so-called Hall of Records if you want to cover that too.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah,
I did a
let's do
whole
that, then I have an
expose
idea.
on this on my YouTube channel, Anyextee on YouTube, where I go into the hidden entrances, origins, and mysteries of the Great Sphinx.
Link in description, by the way. It's an excellent channel, so everyone make sure you go subscribe to that. But go ahead.
Thank you kindly. And I will confirm it is an excellent channel. It just doesn't have. Don't let the low subscribers fool you. I think I have like
I
about
never get
50K.
fooled by that. If it's quality, it's quality. I don't give a fuck.
Well, people
But
tell
go-
me all the time. They're like, "Me, you have all this amazing content, all this knowledge, and,
It's all right.
nobody's
You just
talking."
need your spark. Here you go. Let's get it.
Thank you, Julian.
All right, so here we go.
So if you go, I lived in Luxor. In Luxor, we have the Luxor. I lived in Egypt for a while. When you go to Luxor Museum, there's a small Sphinx statue of King Tut as the Sphinx. He takes on another form, and you can see the crown on the head of the statue. It's like a Lego piece. It goes into the hole and snaps together. So it's likely that the Sphinx, the Great Sphinx, once had a crown, now missing. Also, it had a beard, and we know it had the beard, the royal beard of the pharaoh. It broke off because the pieces are in the Cairo Museum and the British Museum. Multiple pieces, and it likely had a statue of Osiris that was added beneath the beard. Those pieces are missing today. My point is, though, if you were to extend, so if we go back to the other image where the light is on the side profile of the Sphinx there,
Yep.
if you take into account from where you see the light in the dark in the back rump of the Sphinx, that's right around where the fissure is. And everything forward would be proportionate. The head is proportionate. Forget the paws. Pretend there's no paws. The head is proportionate to this horizontal mound, which looks similar to the motif that we find on the Narmer palette. And what I'm proposing is that, and what it says in the Egyptological record is that in order to form a rump in the back, they had to go past the fissure, and that's what gives it that look. And now that they've created this big rump, the Sphinx appears disproportionate, but then they go and add the tail and the paws. And so people take that and they're like, the head is too small, it doesn't fit the body, because the original body isn't the body we see today. And it probably developed over time from an outcropping. Maybe they carved the face, and then they decided to carve out the horizontal platform, and then they decided to turn it into a sphinx, and they added it might not have been one concept from the beginning, and it wouldn't be unusual for it to come out of the living bedrock. It has a deeper esoteric, there's a cosmological concept to it, the one coming out of creation, like a lot of these block statues where people are coming out of the block. Yes. It's spirit trapped in matter. It's another way of expressing it. So that's it. So it's not that the head is disproportionate to the body, it's disproportionate to the body we see today, and that body is an expansion of what was likely the original concept for the Sphinx.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.